Welcome everyone to a new episode of our Urban Lunch Talks. Today we will explore the relationship between businesses, cities, and biodiversity. I'm Ana Calvo and I work in communications for the Driving Urban Transitions Partnership, also known as DUT, and I will be hosting the session today. As you might know, DUT organizes stakeholder workshops and agoras over the year. And one of the goals with these workshops is to identify critical issues or challenges that cities face when it comes to driving urban transitions. And one of those critical issues identified over 2024 was the protection and enhancing biodiversity. DUT also funds projects, and this is actually one of the topics that was part of the DUT call in 2024 that just closed a couple of weeks ago. So I would like you to know a bit more about you and where you are joining us from. So feel welcome to use the chat and write down where you're based or where you're watching. And my colleagues, Ida, Jennifer, and Jacob will be monitoring the chat over the talk. So, and they will be sharing some links. So feel welcome as well to ask questions while we are while you are listening. And as you might know, we don't share presentations. This is just a conversation. So take your chance to go for a walk and enjoy your lunch. We've invited 4 speakers today that will bring different perspectives to this conversation. And we focused on biodiversity because, as I said, it was one of the critical issues identified by the DUT team. We will try to explore how cities and businesses can support biodiversity-positive actions, and also maybe what motivates those actions or limits them today. So yeah, why should we wait any longer? I'm going to introduce the speakers. Our first speaker is Daniela Rizzi. She brings an international perspective to this talk, as she actually recently was in the United Nations Biodiversity Conference in Colombia. She is a senior expert and works at ICLEI. So I would like you to tell us a bit more and also share a bit of your background, Daniela. Welcome.
Thank you so much, and very, very happy for the invitation. Thank you for inviting us. Yeah, I'm with ICLEI, working with local governments for sustainability, and we're trying to advance urban resilience and environmental sustainability in cities. I also coordinate Network Nature. That's a platform that fosters collaboration, knowledge exchange, and innovation around nature-based solutions. And my work also includes contributing to the standardization of nature-based solutions with the European Committee of Standardization. And I'm also very much involved in the topic of the nature-positive economy, which I'm quite passionate about, which is about how can we do an economy that is really trying to restore nature instead of only, depleting nature. Yeah, so happy to tell you more in a bit and to hear from my colleagues today for this lunch talk.
Thank you, Daniela. Our next speaker is Tessa Armour. She's a specialist in urban sustainability, and she was also one of the participants in the stakeholders workshops that DUT organized in 2024. She brings to this talk, I believe, the municipality perspective, like city's perspective, and she's based in Finland, in the city of Espoo. Tessa, would you like to share a few words about you and also how your work relates to biodiversity?
Hi guys, nice to meet you and happy to be here today. My name is Tessa Armour and I work for the city of Espoo, which is based in southern Finland, when we are the second biggest city in Finland. I work in the mayor's office in our Center of Excellence for Sustainable Development, and we, in a cross-administrative way, try to enhance sustainability, including biodiversity and nature positivity throughout the city. yeah, hopefully I can bring a bit of a municipality point of view to this conversation. Really happy to see you all here today.
I'm sure you will. Thanks, Tessa. All right, our next speaker is Tove Hägglund. She is the Biodiversity Business Director at Ecogain. And I believe she brings the business perspective into this talk. So Tove, would you like to share a bit more about your background, but also your work at Ecogain?
Yes, and thank you so much for having me, and so nice to be in this important discussion. My name is Tove Hägglund. I work at Ecogain. Ecogain are a consultancy firm with experts on biodiversity and nature-based solutions, both urban and rural solutions for the nature crisis. And we do a lot of field work, real actions on the ground together with large companies to implement, follow up, and learn from what works to really enhance biodiversity. But we also have the strategic perspective to help companies to set targets, implement action plans, and actually get a business value out of their work for biodiversity. So I hope to be able to contribute with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tove. I'm sure you will as well. Okay, and our last speaker is António Ferreira. He's a professor at the Agrarian School of Coimbra in Portugal, and he has worked in different projects that have to do with nature-based solutions and also green infrastructure. António, would you like to introduce yourself and a bit of your work?
Good morning. First of all, thank you very much for having me and allowing me to share my experience. We've been working for a few decades in the areas of greening the city and to use the greening of that city to improve the environment and tackle some environmental problems that are a result of either climatic change, either the urbanization, because there's a kind of concentration of pollutants in urban areas. And actually, we use nature-based solutions to try to tackle them. We are also involved in very closely involved with the municipality to try to improve the quality of life of the citizens. So I hope that my contribution will be significant to this talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you for accepting the invitation and for being here. I'm sure the conversation is going to be fruitful. So let's start with setting up some context, so to speak. I would like to know from your experience, what is the current situation, or how do you think is the current situation when it comes to biodiversity in cities? For example, how do different stakeholders view biodiversity? Do you think it's a priority when we think about the international community or the municipalities, or even for businesses in this case? Yeah, what's your interpretation of the current situation when it comes to biodiversity? Let's start, let's say, with Daniela.
Thank you, Anna, for this question. I think it's a very good place to start. Maybe I can bring in some reflections. As you mentioned, I just came back from COP16 that took place in Cali in Colombia. And I must say that we saw how important it is, the voice of cities and of local governments there. What I have been seeing as a trend is that I've probably read the news, like we had a lot of strong things coming out of COP, like the indigenous communities and local communities, they got a subsidiary body for the first time. So they are now really able to influence the decision-making in terms of the global biodiversity framework. We had the Cali Fund approved. And so many good things happened. I don't want to be negative, but we have a little bit of a gap that the financing strategy for the global biodiversity framework was not agreed upon. They talk about 200 billion dollars per year that has to go into helping stop biodiversity loss. And yeah, the governments could not vote yet. So technically, COP16 is still open. So what does has had to do with cities? We have been seeing that a lot of the action is really happening on the ground with cities. So there is a kind of a protagonism here that we see with their role. And here I want to highlight two initiatives, not to overwhelm you. One of them is the Berlin Urban Nature Pact. So this was started by the city of Berlin, but it is an initiative from a city to cities to agree on ambitious targets towards urban biodiversity. So they have a very nice framework and the cities jump in, they sign this commitment and they help each other to get there, right? This is one very interesting thing. And the other thing that we saw being launched there at COP was the Urban Biodiversity Accelerator. And this is more on the side of capacity building. So there we're going to see a program coming up where the cities can really help each other in terms of capacity building. And you have experts also, teaching them and exchanging with them in their journey and to up their game in terms of urban biodiversity. I'm going to put in the chat a link. We did a news bit about COP16 and what we did there. So if you're interested, thank you.
Who else would like to jump in on your experience on how stakeholders view biodiversity or work with it? Tove?
Yes, I can have a go because we are working with both the independent companies, but also the sector as a whole in Sweden to help them learn more. As you mentioned, Daniela, there's a knowledge gap, which we see very clearly. But there's also a very strongly increase in the interest in this issue. Many companies are interested in, okay, what can we do? Where do we start? What is the best practice? And that is, I think, a very, very good thing. That's important. But from our perspective, and I would very much like to hear your thoughts on this, is that it's quite hard for businesses to act on this and invest a lot of money unless they have a clear business case. And there is a business case in some areas, at least, with risk mitigation and building a brand and so on. But the demand side is not yet so developed. So that's something that I see is key to actually drive large-scale investment in biodiversity within cities. We hear that the CSRD framework within Europe has really raising this issue up on the agenda within businesses. Now we're talking about biodiversity within our business. There's a curiosity. We see that is relevant for us, but the business case is still a bit unclear. What is your, do you any of you other have any reflections on this?
Yeah, maybe I can jump in. I think I do agree with you, Tove. Like we see a big interest in biodiversity and beyond the idea of what is the recreational use in the cities, but biodiversity as a value of its own to nature and all of us within it. At the same time, we have a big pressure to build in cities. The cities, especially in southern Finland, are still growing. We need to be building in a sustainable way. We need to be taking biodiversity into account. And we do see a lot of companies as well who are really interested in doing something about these issues, but don't necessarily see where they have their business case in these. What we have tried to do is provide the city as a platform for these innovations that do grow out of it. We've started talking about, instead of just carbon footprint, about the nature footprint and how you kind of see those chains of how the actions of this company that has nothing to do with the environment directly do affect the things that they do in the long run and how they use resources. So trying to make those visible and then finding the places there where the impact can be the most. And we as a city doing that in our own actions, but also supporting those businesses, especially within Espoo, who have a strong interest in preserving biodiversity and regenerating it. But I'd like to hear the other comments on this as well.
Okay. Well, I'm probably, I think, well, the oldest person in this panel, and as given my experience, I think there's an increasing, you know, when I compare how it was a few decades ago, there's an increasing on awareness of the why biodiversity, why the green, blue, and brown infrastructures are important in cities, and this increasing awareness is probably the most important thing, because that's what allows us to go forward and improve the management, the planning. I think the plans that we have in all over Europe are much more concerned with the biodiversity and with the environmental services they provided to the citizens than there was a few decades ago. And I think that there is a big opportunity in coordinating multiple objectives. You know, we have now the neutral carbon network. Sorry, the neutral carbon cities, which is a network in Europe, and there are also other initiatives that if at local level we can coordinate everything, that will have a very big impact on the biodiversity, on improving biodiversity in cities. In terms of the connection with the companies, we have had several projects trying to also to take advantage of this new Internet of Things revolution that we are going through, and there are, at least in the technological part of the company spectrum, there are also quite a lot of interest on these new ways of approaching this biodiversity problem and trying to create platforms and sensors to help to manage the biodiversity in cities. There are several solutions. Probably I shouldn't take too much time at this stage on that, but
Thank you. I don't know if you have other questions like with what other people have shared, but one thing that came to my mind is that since Daniela said that there is like a gap in like funding, for example, for these kind of projects and initiatives, and also that there is an interest from the business community, but maybe a lack of demand and it's hard to maybe make a business case. I wonder about this comment that you made, Tessa, about that you in the city, you are making a platform for businesses. So what do you mean by that? Just out of curiosity, unless you have other questions that you want to ask.
Yeah, I don't mean a physical platform maybe, or that as well, but how the city, on top of being this place where people work and live and is their home, it's also a place for innovations to happen. And for those innovations to happen, you need these places where you can pilot them, where you can test them, where you can have real human interactions, nature interactions as well with your solutions. So we as a city try to provide those spaces where the companies can come and test their new solutions, have a low barrier towards it, have this, support them in the communications that they have with the citizens of Espoo. We've had different pilot programs. We have one going on at the moment where we're searching for solutions. So we've given them some challenges. We say that we find it really challenging to bring biodiversity into these spaces where we have yards that have parking underneath them, so the plants can't grow in a normal way. There's no deep space for roots. We have green walls that are more difficult for the weather conditions, especially now we're having, for Finland, unusually hot and dry summers that our vegetation isn't so used to and our animal life isn't so used to. So how we can solve these things. So we're not saying, oh, we want this business to have this solution. We're saying we have these issues, come solve them with us and we'll find you a space and we'll help you find the space and we'll give you a bit of money to test it. And so and those solutions can be digital, they can be an event, they can be a lighting show, they can be a physical technical solution. So how we as a city are interacting with the companies and the stakeholders and giving them basically giving them space to innovate and try out these solutions. So that is what I mean. And if anybody else has like experience of doing things like this, I'd really like to hear it, because this is something I think that is a very unique thing. Not a unique thing. Some other cities do it as well, but it is something we do a lot in Espoo, and I'd really like to hear if you got any experiences on that as well.
I can jump in. I think it was super interesting to hear about your platform. And the thing that came to my mind was the Business and Biodiversity Network that we are running in Sweden, where we gather 30 companies around biodiversity and how we get it to be business relevant. How do we learn from other companies? How do we learn from other countries? How to enhance the speed of action within the biodiversity field. So it was really, really interesting. We will really have a look at this platform that you have built. And one thing that we have developed within the Business and Biodiversity Network and the subgroup from this network is a KPI for biodiversity, or biodiversity units in Swedish environments, which is a way to standardize a metric for biodiversity. So you can actually compare your biodiversity performance. And that is something that many businesses say that this is important for us to be able to communicate our biodiversity performance to our customers, to our financials. And we already have it in the UK since very many years ago, the biodiversity metric, which we have been very much inspired by. And I think this is one of the keys. We need to have this carbon dioxide equivalent for biodiversity as well, to be able to actually set the stamp. Okay, this is biodiversity performance A, B, or C. Do you have any references on these types of plans or standardized ways of communicating around biodiversity performance?
Maybe I can jump in here, Tove and Tessa. I think both your initiatives, I mean, I know that Espoo is really leading the way here in having such a program. Like, you know, that's a dream, like to have a city that is really telling to entrepreneurs, like, guys, we're here, we need this, and you have a space to test solutions. And, you know, so I think this is really like a front runner positioning, you know, towards biodiversity. And I hope that every city in Europe and around the world can learn from Espoo. And also, I think the platform Business at Biodiversity, you're doing also amazing work, you know, to help businesses to lose their fears, you know, regarding like how to work with biodiversity. And here, maybe just to put it up an opportunity, there is this platform that is called Connecting Nature Enterprise Platform. And I find it really interesting because what they're trying to do is really to do the marriage between demand and supply. So the suppliers are usually the entrepreneurs and the enterprises, and, you know, maybe sometimes also corporates, but this platform focuses even more on, you know, small and medium enterprises than in corporates. And it's really interesting how it works, because they are trying to put up, you know, a whole database of enterprises working with nature-based solutions. So green roofs, sustainable urban drainage systems, biodiversity monitoring, community engagement for NBS. And then you have the cities also there. And I wish that Espoo would also be there, because the cities are putting up the calls, you know, so they say a city right, I need somebody who understands how to, you know, solve the problem of urban heat island. And I have the problem with flooding or air quality. And then the enterprises that read that, they can pitch, you know, and then you can do this marriage between, you know, the demand and the supply. So yeah, I find that really a strong marriage that we need to create a market for this, right?
Yeah, I do agree. And we're by no means ready with the solution yet. So how we have created impact in our work is that we use a lot of external funding. We have a lot of EU fundings that kind of provide us with the opportunity to do these things that we wouldn't be able to do as cities, business as usual. We have these certain things that we have to do. We need to provide schooling, we need to provide daycare, we need to provide roads. And on top of that, when we want to create impact, when we want to create change, then different fundings have kind of given us the resources to give not big money, but some money to the companies and say, hey, come and develop this, come and solve this solution for us. And I'm really interested to hear the network you have, and I'm definitely going to check out the links. And same with Tove. I know we're only halfway through, but I still think that I'd love to connect with you in the future as well and keep with this conversation. António, do you have any view on how like the business cases can be connected to the real life places that we have?
Yes, basically here in Coimbra, the municipality has a program where it's more towards the digital, but then the digital is also approaching the biodiversity, the nature-based solutions, and the carbon neutral aspects. So basically, the municipality has a program where if you have a innovative solution that you want to test in the real world, they will put the assets, the means of the municipality to help testing those solutions within the city. Basically, that's you know, the money for biodiversity is not always that big. So one of the ways we find that it's possible to implement more actions related to biodiversity is to couple the biodiversity with the other aspects, even the socioeconomical aspects. For instance, we have this urban agriculture that program that has also some social objectives of integration of the least favorable, the people with problems of integration, and for instance, people with long periods without unemployment. So basically, the biodiversity can be kind of the focal point for lots of solutions that are also important to other fields. And this probably, if we can do it right, can probably bring the financial envelope that we need to improve the biodiversity in cities.
So interesting conversation. Tove, would you like to add something else?
Well, I have to build upon that, what you said, António, and how to create the financial flows. And as you also, Daniela, mentioned that there's a finance gap for the biodiversity targets that we have. The next theme for our business and biodiversity meeting is public-private cooperation to speed and scale biodiversity actions. And the nature restoration law, which we don't really know yet how this will create more demand or incentives for companies to actually contribute. And when we are setting up our agenda for our network meeting, we are scanning the market to see, okay, what are there good examples about this out there in the rest of the world or in Sweden? And it's a bit hard for us to find examples on where businesses and the public sector has gone together to actually co-finance projects. Do you know of any preferably large and if not small scale projects that has actually come that we all can learn from?
That was also actually one of my questions for you. Like, let's try to find concrete examples or, when businesses and cities have collaborated or have managed to support biodiversity positive actions. And maybe I would like to also hear a bit of like what were the motivations or what were the limits as well. Yeah.
Well, I have to say that these partnerships between the private and the public are not that well seen in Portugal because of some problems with the I think the idea is very interesting. I think it's probably the future. For instance, in terms of the setting the neutral carbon cities, you have to have those solutions because the investment is so big that neither the private or the public, so we need some agreement, but in political terms in Portugal at the moment is a bit problematic because our history of trying to implement that was not that successful, and that's a issue that we have to overcome here in Portugal.
It's a limitation.
We say that we private if you have if you have problems and you have to spend money, the public sector spends the money, and then if you have profit, the profit goes to that's the perception goes to the privates, and that's the perception that we have at the moment in Portugal because of some partnerships that didn't went that well. There were problems, and then but that's something that we have to overcome, and at European level, because of the problems that we are facing require an articulation between everybody, and
Maybe does it come to mind any successful examples? It could be like, of course, a private-public collaboration or cooperation, but it can also be maybe just a business that has also invested and for a reason to make biodiversity positive actions. I would like to know what are the motivation and what made it actually happen.
Maybe I can bring one positive example from Poland. I love to mention that example because I think they really upped their game here. So Poznan is a city in Poland, and they had many kindergartens, right? And it's really interesting what they did with these kindergartens. Like, they saw that these places, they were a lot of times inserted in a certain neighborhood, and they would open these kindergartens in the weekends because many times they were the places where you had more nature for the neighbors, So it was really cool what they did. Like they started first to frame these kindergartens as nature playgrounds. So they redesigned them to be a lot more nature-based. so that the kids would have more, relationship with, pollinators and urban flora and urban fauna, and and then they opened these in the weekends, and they started, I think, with 10, and at the end of the program that the city put up, I think they had more than 40. If I'm not wrong, I can check the numbers again, but they have all these playgrounds, nature playgrounds now, and the citizens are also benefiting from it. So I think that's a super hopeful, example that can inspire also other cities.
Thank you for this example, Daniela. We need to share the good ones so that we can actually get some energy in this. And I can also share from Swedish perspective that there is companies doing good things for biodiversity, but not on the broad scale and every company yet, but they're coming. But we work with a company since quite many years to develop biodiversity management plans for all their land. So we have taken it step by step and developed these plans, and now they're implementing them and doing the calculations with the climate project, the climate metrics, sorry, to actually see, okay, we are increasing biodiversity with these percentage. So that is, of course, very strong communication for them. And that is their incentive to do this. And often in these companies, there is one person or two that is very strongly committed to this issue and are promoting it internally. So that can be actually one person doing a lot of change within the company and to get all the others with them. So the internal leaders on biodiversity are very, very important persons until we have these large-scale incentives for every business. But then again, if they can get more paid or get lower rent for their loans, that would bring up the incentives even more. And I know that financiers are looking at these types of ways to make the money go to the right direction, so to say. Yeah.
Just mentioning here, I saw yesterday that this Triodos Bank, they put a sign out there that they're investing 500 million euros in nature-based solutions. And I hope that it's just the first bank out of many, that the financing sector is finally jumping in more. So that's really impressive. I can put here the news about it. It just was launched yesterday, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is something that is happening more and more. So instead of having great infrastructure and having these spaces that we see as places for recreation, for example, fields of grass, we're starting to use more and more nature-based solutions. We're seeing within the municipality these fields of flowers or local grown plants. We are leaving, when a tree falls down, we'll leave it there for the pollinators, we'll leave it there for the bugs. And I think the understanding about nature-based solutions is getting bigger and bigger the whole time, but there's still quite a lot of education needed. So like we might leave some piece of grass as at its natural state, and then we get complaints to say like, why has nobody been to mow the grass? So there is a lot of like education that needs to happen as well. On top of the actions we take is for people to understand why we're taking them and why are they better for the nature and better for us and the health of human beings as well in the long run.
And I think that you're into something really important there, Tessa, because it's often quite cheap. Okay, there are some big investments that we really need to do, but on the ground, on this site, it could be very, very cheap. You choose the right type of plants and you do the right measures to not mow the grass, and to leave the tree and to leave the bushes. So, and that could make significant change. So that's an important message. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. One thing I was also thinking is like that, of course, these nature-based solutions and biodiversity-positive design in like cities are not the norm yet. And of course, that has to do with communication, that people need to know what it entails. But I wonder if you have any comments on like how we can make a business case for these solutions or for enhancing biodiversity. Like, do any ideas come to mind? And also I want to ask the people who are in the audience, if you have any questions, please do write them in the chat because we will address them shortly.
Okay. Well, one idea that comes to mind is basically to use, for instance, in the construction and sector, you can have some buildings that either have, for instance, green roofs or green walls. That can be something interesting for the construction sector. We have a few examples here in Coimbra even. And the other is the implementation of a bioclimatic architecture, for instance, to manage the vegetation around some buildings to improve the living within the buildings. You know, for instance, to act as to provide shade during the summer, to reduce the temperatures within the buildings, and so on. So those can be things that probably some sectors of the private companies can explore.
Because of like saving energy and so on, as you mean?
Yeah, so yeah, you know, I think if we are clever, we have to mingle the biodiversity and greening the cities with other objectives that will give them strength and and will make it much more easy to implement.
I see also that Tove wants to add something.
Yes, because I think you're into something important there, António, because the possibilities side is very important for businesses. Okay, what's in it for us to invest in biodiversity? Okay, we can actually lower the heat in the building. We can save energy from cooling. We can prevent flooding by investing in these wetlands outside of the city, perhaps. But what we see is that the risk perspective can also be very, very effective to bringing this up on the business leaders' agenda. Within Sweden, we have very many invasive species becoming increasing cost for companies. For example, invasive species that are severely harming buildings and very expensive to get rid of. So that's where the businesses become aware that, okay, this might be a significant cost for us in the future. We better increase our knowledge. We better know what we are dealing with when we are moving earth from different places to another and so on. The possibilities are much more fun to talk about, but the risks are also important because that's what we are all facing.
You know, just to give you an example of the institution where I work, we actually have a big problem because we have a small stream that passes through the school. We have 140 hectares, of which 70 hectares are within the urban matrix of the city. But we have some problems. We are not trying to gain money with it. Probably what we are doing is to prepare the next generation to be more aware, you know, to educate the new generation. But we actually build out of, you know, with only our resources, without any funding. We thought it was important because we had a flooding problem at the outlet of this small stream, and we actually built wet area, a small lake, to try to help to regulate that. That now we are going to renature with some the autochthonous species, and basically that's a good example. And you know, that's how we actually try to solve the problem with nature-based solutions. But yeah, we don't gain anything, and not no money. You know, we actually spend some money, but our objective was not to gain money, but we actually gain some experience that we'll pass on to our students.
I think Daniela also wanted to say something. Yeah.
Yeah, just maybe to put on the table a resource that I think that we have been working with many cities, but also businesses, to kind of understand what could be the revenue streams, what could be the business models. And there is this business model canvas, which is actually, this is a very well-known tool that many businesses use. But this Connecting Nature project has put one that is really designed for nature-based solutions. So I'm putting the link in the chat. And I think that was really interesting, because what we noticed is that when we do webinars and online workshops, sometimes we're happy to meet people on the ground, but sometimes we do it online, is that we noticed that a lot of these businesses, they didn't know the array of benefits that their nature-based solutions was actually delivering. So I think that this business model canvas helped them to see, okay, what are the benefits, as you said, António, in terms of like well-being, health benefits, you know, air quality improvement, you know, to try to track all these co-benefits apart from biodiversity, which is the heart of nature-based solutions, that these solutions are delivering, right? Which a lot of times they are more competitive and actually a better investment than gray infrastructure. Because usually gray infrastructure has a very monofunctional kind of thinking, right? So they deliver that, right? Or they deliver two things. NBS, they deliver 9, 10, 11 things. Not all of them are creating revenue streams, but they are bringing a lot of benefits that we still have to learn how to compute, you know, into the system. So yeah. Tessa, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of agree with you on this, and then think of as cities, our responsibility is to develop our procurement and our own skills so that we know how to ask for those nature-based solutions instead of those gray solutions, and how, even though they might be a bit more expensive in some cases, it is really an investment in the well-being of the citizens and the, well, also those non-human citizens that we have in the city, into the future and the well-being of that. And then, yeah, I think that also creates the market, develops the market for businesses to have business cases and develop their innovations and their solutions. When they can see that cities are starting to ask for these, there is a big market for these. We've also created this we have in use this green factor tool, which means that for the city plants that we have, there needs to be a certain amount of biodiversity for every plot that gets built. And I'll share it in the chat as well. But also that is kind of forcing the building companies, forcing the other companies to think of the new solutions for biodiversity and how we can have more of this greenery. And it's just gone through in our city governance, and this is going to be in all the new city plans that we make. So yeah, definitely, I think nature-based solutions for the win all the way.
Yeah, great. We're not getting many questions in the chat, and we're also approaching the end of this conversation. I would like maybe to leave our audience with like some thoughts, or like some reflections from your side. So we've been talking about alternative ways of working with biodiversity in cities. Where are the needs, some challenges. So I would like to ask you specifically to think about a one do and a don't, like some statement very shortly about how would you like what to do to ensure biodiversity is considered and prioritized in cities and by businesses. Maybe you can say it from your own perspective. A do and a don't. So something that you should do to get biodiversity up in the agenda, and something that you could maybe stop doing or do less.
Maybe I can start. It's easier to start because the last one than the other said. But anyway, I'll start there. The do is integrate biodiversity into your core business strategy. And it doesn't matter if you're a business or if you are a city. I think companies are being asked to report on their, disclose on how they harm or not harm biodiversity and nature. But I think the next ones to be in the line to be asked to disclose are going to be cities. So they should start to think about it. Ensure that biodiversity enhancement is a fundamental part of how you operate. It doesn't matter if you're a city or a business. And then treating biodiversity as an afterthought, that's a don't. Like, don't think about biodiversity as an add-on, as something that is like optional or, it's part of our whole system. It's because we're here today and we're able to talk to one another. Nature underpins everything. So I think it's an exercise for everyone to think about how to engage with it more. Yeah.
I'll be happy to go next, so I don't have to think of the things that other people haven't said. Our mayor is very fond of saying that the things we do together are the things that we succeed in. And I think my don't will be that do not work alone in these issues, and do bring in not just the people within the city, but the networks, the citizens, the companies, and everybody. And on top of this, also bring the worms to the meetings. So bring also those species that don't have similar voices that we do, and think of those issues from their perspective as well.
Excellent. António, do you want to go
now
first?
Me, okay. Well, I'm in line with Daniela. There's a kind of movement towards greening the cities. Several projects, so several strategies. So please do the best you can to improve biodiversity. And don't align with those and bring the biodiversity. That's probably the best way of getting some funding, another level of funding for biodiversity. The don't is related with our experience here in our campus and in our school, which is open the areas with biodiversity to people. Let them let them. We have a word fruition. People should experience, should be educated to why it is important. They should be educated in biodiversity. And if you close the biodiversity, especially in a city, as I always say, we have 70 hectares within an urban area. Which is very appealing for buildings, for building infrastructure. And the only way that we can safeguard our campus, which is a really nice place, is allowing people to use the campus to see how it's valuable. So if you have some biodiversity and people don't know about it, then if you need some if someone plans a motorway or something that they have already tried, if the citizens don't go against it, also our strength is very small. You know, if people value the biodiversity, it's much more easy to defend biodiversity within cities. That's the don't.
So if I may summarize, I think it's like don't assume that people know the value of biodiversity and highlight it a bit.
Yeah, they have to be educated also on that.
And yes, thank you. And I totally agree with all that has been said, of course. But I would really much like to point out again how important it is to actually implement biodiversity in the business model for business or in the overall strategic planning for a municipality or city, and to think of the whole value chain, because we often think of the land use that is currently at place, but the cities has also massive impact in the upstream perspective in the urban rural areas, and that's also a place where we need to enhance biodiversity, and cities can actually make good things happen in the rural areas as well. So that's my do, and my don't is don't let perfection or fear stop you from start doing things. Start, do, and learn on the journey.
Great, very inspiring, I think. Well, thank you so much to all of you for this interesting conversation. I do hope that you keep in touch and that other people can get to know a bit more about you, your work, and explore those links that we've shared. We've been recording this webinar, so we will post it on or publish it on YouTube, and also we will follow up with an email to you so that the audience also can contact and reach out to the four of you. Yeah, I can only say like this has been a pleasure for me to host it, and like yeah, and I'm happy to have you here. So we'll leave it here for today, I would say. Daniela, Tessa, António, Tove, thanks so much. And yeah, we see each other in the next Urban Lunch talk that's going to be about 15-minute cities, actually. Thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed it. Have a nice
It
rest
was
of the
lovely,
day.
lovely,
Yes.
Anna. Thanks so much for
Yeah.
organizing it. It was a pleasure.
Thanks to
Bye-bye.
you.